We are the PoPers. We are a baking club. It doesn't cost you anything to be here, but when you join me for my lives twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays, I share one recipe a week and we talk about baking and everything that I can give you that I know that I have learned in my decades in the industry and also as a college level baking teacher. I am giving to you because I want to bridge the gap between professional bakers and home bakers. And I really do want to disrupt the industry. We should all be using grams and scales and thinking like an ingredient because these things make it easier for us to be successful and waste less. So we talked about the flavor of the cheesecakes. I've got the flavor Bible. I recommend this in everybody's bookshelf, whether you're a cook or a baker or both. You'll see this in professional kitchens, and it is a flavor Bible or an encyclopedia because you go through it alphabetically and look up your main flavor. So when you're doing flavor work, you pick one main thing that you want to work with. Sometimes it's because the ingredient tells you it has to be, and other times it's because that's what you want to use. So with ginger, I looked up ginger and I went through, and I didn't write down all the words that were in the book. I wrote down the words that I thought would be good in a dessert and that I like or am interested in using. So that's a flavor Bible. I highly recommend you buy it. And you just pick it up anytime you want to make a dessert. I don't care if you're making a cake. So on here, I wrote down just some notes that the book had. And for instance, in our cheesecake, we aren't just going to take ginger and cheesecake. We have to think about texture, color, temperature, and getting contrast. Salty, sweet, bitter, salty, crunchy, smooth, hot, cold. All these kinds of things are part of how we perceive flavor. So we'll talk about the cake a little bit more because I made a passion fruit cream, a ginger crumb crust, cookie crust for my plain Rose Levy cheesecake. But if I wanted to, these are all the different flavors that go along. And for just an overview, ginger's the main ingredient. We want 3 to 5 other flavors that go with it, and 3 to 5 textures, colors, and or whatever to make any dessert interesting. Plated, a cake, a sundae. If you're making an ice cream sundae, you want to add a crunchy, maybe a warm, different colors, that kind of thing. So in my case, these are some of the flavors we're going to be using. So I have ginger and I have passion fruit. Well, that gives you, a beginning. Coconut goes well with that. So I don't have a coconut crunch, but if I were to make some topping, that would be really nice. But I already have a crunch in the layer, so I didn't make it. But coconut or toasted coconut goes well. Here are some of the other flavors they recommend. You think if you have ginger and a plain cream cheesecake with passion cream on top, what are some of these things you would want to add to it? Okay, I'm just going to say them, and in your own mind, just think about it. Almond, apricot, banana, caramel, fennel, fig, 5-spice, grapefruit, guava, honey, lemon, mango, kosher salt, toasted sesame oil, strawberry, tamarind, tea, verbena, yogurt, white pepper, pear, peach, papaya, orange, olive oil, oat, nutmeg, molasses, mint, melon, mascarpone, maple syrup, and lychee. There you go. Any one of those would have been a nice balance for this cheesecake. Let's say you're having friends over, and this summer you're going to do a biscuit, because, that's on the list for next week for us to vote on. A strawberry shortcake or something like that. You have strawberry, you have a biscuit, and you have whipped cream. What else would you maybe want to add to that? Maybe, infused in the cream or, on the strawberries. So you want to start to, when you present even very simple desserts, to think about how can you finish it out, because that thoughtful process will give you the next bump into the next level of your dessert making. Even if it's simple, it just shows thought that you don't need to tell everyone about. You just serve it and let them tell you what they like about it. Never serve a dessert and tell people what they're supposed to like about it. Your dessert's a full sentence. Remember that. Let them tell you what they like about it. And they're going to notice an elevated presentation when you give everything a lot of thought. Is it traditional to add lemon and lime juice or zest to a burnt Basque cheesecake? All I can say is I am not an expert. I did make the Basque cheesecake. I'm going to pull it out in a minute. It depends on, I'm not from Spain. I don't know. I made it as traditional and plain. Some will tell you that it's not supposed to be in there and others will. I think I used La Viña as the foundational idea, and then I went with America's Test Kitchen for a very simple one. And I will tell you, as a spoiler alert, it is a dessert that I would put at the top rankings of all the things I've ever made. It should be in your repertoire. It's gorgeous. It tastes amazing. You can serve it warm or cold, and you don't have to put anything on it. The way that it bakes is much hotter than the Rose Levy cheesecake. It's not in a water bath, and it gets a crust that is so complex and so different from the cheesecake part that just eating it alone is sublime. It's ethereal. So if you are going to try something new, the Basque cheesecake is definitely something you should do, but I would not put any flavoring in it. Do it plain. And then if you want to adjust it next time, go ahead. But I have told you guys many times, I love plain flavors. If you're going to give me almond, give me almond. I love citrus and all of that. But there's something sublime about allowing the flavor of the ingredients to come forward in their natural state. The lovely cheesecake became a beautiful custard. The crust has caramelization and flavors. I mean, I think I read something once about the Maillard reaction and how many flavors. It's thousands and thousands of flavor molecules that you get to experience that you could never, verbalize, but that make it amazing. So the Basque cheesecake is phenomenal. But I don't know what's traditional, and I'm not an expert at other people's traditions, so I don't want anyone to, I don't know. So you're saying that you made the Basque cheesecake and the lime reduced the creaminess of it. Well, it's an acid, so it's going to coagulate your proteins. And coagulation is when you get chunks or hardness, like when you cook an egg and it starts to turn white, or you pour hot something over an egg and it starts to get, chunks. So you have taken those microscopic proteins and hardened them just a tiny bit. So that is going to give you a mouthfeel that is less creamy. So you actually know, your body knows. And I'll tell you, in looking for these Basque cheesecake recipes, I pat myself on the back because I was like, I picked the best recipe. Because I read all the notes of other people. I kind of looked around and I was like, we need it to be creamy. We need it to be like a souffle. It's going to get really dark on the outside. Everything needs to be room temperature when I mix it together. It's an emulsion. It's a custard done at high heat. I knew that I didn't want to stray too far from the original. Thank you. Isn't that pretty? That's so Eastery too. Thank you. So what I did is I chose the most basic, simple as a baseline. And any Basque cheesecake I make going forward, I'm going to compare to this one because it's sublime. So if I change it, that's okay if I want to add flavors and do things to it. But I would rather take this cheesecake and add a topping or a side part and kind of add the flavor and the texture elsewhere. So it's not always necessary to add the flavor to your main dish. I think a lot of cheesecakes have become gunked up with massive alterations becoming a different dessert. I agree with you. And one of the reasons that I take the time to talk to you guys like this instead of slamming you with just recipe, is because I'm not giving you recipes. I do other people's recipes for the most part, and I only offer good recipes. I am not into trying 100 recipes. I want to find a really good one, and then I want to explain to you why it works, so that you can begin to be a really good recipe picker like I am. I have an ability to find a recipe and look at it and say, red flag. If I get 2 or 3 red flags, I'm out. I don't want that recipe. And there are websites that are red flags in general. So yes, I think a cheesecake, it's fun to have a million flavors, but the way I want everyone here, instead of thinking of, brown butter is good in everything. Add espresso to every brownie. Those are not true phrases. They are right when they are in balance and done well. But what's happening is people are throwing into this bucket ideas and hacks and shortcuts, and I want to get everything done really quick. Take a step back, do the most basic, and if anything you do to change it's going to change its basic formulation, basic structure, then you want to start adding things to your plate. You don't want to change what is beautiful. And I love respecting beautiful, perfect recipes. And you can always add a lemon cream or something else to it. Not that that's traditional, I don't think, but you can. You can do whatever you want, but you don't necessarily have to put it into the recipe. It isn't your job, unless you are a recipe developer or a trained chef, to look at every recipe and then change a million things. Find the basic, find a good one, and then you can play with it. But when people jump around and they're constantly changing ingredients and thinking that they're in control of what's going on, you really, I take a step back, way back, and I respect what's going on. And I take the most basic foundational stuff and then I analyze it. I do it the way it's supposed to be done. And then maybe I add to it. All right. I'm going to wash my hands before I touch my deli cups. I'm going to go pull my hair back. And get rid of my sweater, and I will be right back. Woohoo! I know it's not glamorous, but when we pull our hair back, we keep things clean. So it looks like I'm wearing the same outfit, but I actually wear these overalls over other things. So I do have clean clothes on from Wednesday. But I'm going to wear these until it's warm enough to take them off. They're insulated Carhartts. I love them. I have short fingernails. This is my fit check. My chef's fit check for being safe and clean. Short fingernails, no jewelry. I have my hair up and back, safe clothes on, and I wear clogs in the kitchen. I'm going to have a brand new clean apron on. These are cheap. We've talked about this. I fold them right out of the dryer and it looks like I ironed it. I do like ironing, but we don't have room for an ironing board in our teeny tiny little house that we rent. Today's cheesecake day, everybody. I'm going to get my glasses back on. I'm going to wash my hands, clean the countertop, and then I'm going to show you some stuff because we have some really great cheesecakes to go through. I have a glaze right now. This is the apricot glaze. You can see that the pectin in it has made it firm, so I'm going to microwave it for like 5-second pulses, but I don't cook or heat in them because it's not really, I don't like foods, it's not really good to put the plastic in the microwave. So we did a cheesecake, and you guys were right last week. I did not have the parchment on the bottom. When I pulled it out, there was no parchment, and you caught me. You guys are so funny. So this is the loose bottom cheesecake pan, and I got to tell you, I think I'm going to order another. I wish I'd had two, because I had to break my Basque cake because I needed the bottom to bake the next cheesecake, because cheesecakes have to rest and sit and chill and cool forever, and so if you only have one pan, it makes production kind of difficult. But if any of you are running businesses, the great thing about cheesecake is you can scale it up and down so easily, and then scoop it and do minis in any size. So you could bang out hundreds of little minis if you're like a caterer doing a small business. It's really versatile, and I have a vegan cheesecake on the vegan playlist that I know works. It came from someone in a restaurant that's very well regarded, and then I've made it for large parties, and as a vegan dish, it's excellent. And it's just so easy to make it in giant amounts. I made the rose levy one, and then I made a crumb crust using a ginger cookie that I bought. I'm going to post that video tomorrow. But I typically do not cut circles. I typically just put like a square on the bottom because you don't need to go to the edge. All you need to do is make sure there's a little parchment in the center. That's kind of like your hot spot for sticking. But I took the parchment, and it'll be in the video, and just, this is the center of this. So you could either just draw it like that, or I drew it with this. And then I cut it on the inside of the line so that it would fit perfectly. So this loose bottom, I recommend more than a, what do you call the one with the latch on the side? I don't like those. I think they leak, and I don't like them. This fits in there just perfectly, see? So I did a cookie crumb, and then I pulled it out, cooled it, and then put it back in, and then filled it with the rose levy and baked it. And so we have the ginger cookie, the cheesecake, and then I did the passion. I'm going to show it to you right now. Springform, thank you. So I want to show you all the pan that I used, just so you're aware. Works great. I made a raspberry puree, and I've made this video many times, but I put it in a squeeze bottle. I did a video about it yesterday if you want to go see. And this is great because I can either take my plate. I'm going to do a little bit of plating. I can either take the plate and I can do dots and decorations, or I can take the puree and pour it all on the top of one cheesecake. But I like a squeeze bottle because you can do pretty little squiggles and whatever. And I used a funnel to pour it in here. It's just a cheap little squeeze bottle. And this is my puree. So the puree is a ready-to-eat food. All foods from the time you open them, prepare them, make them, have 7 days. The weakest link is whatever's the oldest. So this is just the puree, which has sugar and lemon in it. 7 days, unless I freeze it, and I could freeze it. Then you get up to 3 months, and you want to put it back in the fridge to bring it down. You don't want to go from freezer to counter. So you can freeze it or refrigerate it. The rule on all food that is ready to eat, RTE, is 7 days. So if you have a cake and you baked it and you're like, oh, how long is it? It's 7 days. It's just 7 days, not from, that's why sometimes you'll see my labels will go on and they'll be the day before. And that's because I made it yesterday, but I'm labeling it and wrapping it today for storage. And it has yesterday's date on it because that's when I made it. Does that make sense? But I love this raspberry puree. It's out of the Rose Levy Berenbaum Cake Bible. Been using it forever. Many people have suggested, like, why don't you just use a juicer and this kind of thing? I like to let the frozen raspberries, they need to be frozen to unlock all of the pulp and the flavor. And I like to push it with a spatula on a sieve. I like doing these things. I like taking my time, seeing the food. I like it. So I don't look for ways to go faster. That's just me. And then I reduce it, I refrigerated it, and then this morning I was like, it's plenty thick. Or yesterday, so it's plenty thick, so I didn't need to reduce it anymore. But sometimes you need to chill it to see that you've got it to the consistency you want. There's no one way, no one consistency that's right. Do you want it runny? Do you want it to go on the cake and stop and be thicker? That's up to you, and that comes down to how much water you remove, how you reduce it. I don't use a juicer because, and I have a juicer, I love juicing. I don't use a juicer for this because with raspberries, you know, all the little seeds, that's what ends up in your sieve as you push out the pulp and the juice. So the little seeds, I don't want them pulverized. I don't want them ground up. They're bitter. So I'd rather have that gentle hand touch. And that's the honest answer, because I love a juicer for a lot of things. So the raspberry puree is something I can use decoratively. It's very tart. Depending on how much sugar I add, it can be sweet or tart, okay? This is an apricot glaze, and I bought apricot preserves. Big chunks of apricots in there. So I sieved out the big chunks. Well, actually, I heated it up first. Put it in a pan, warmed it up, reduced it just a little bit, and then I poured it through a sieve, and this is what I got. I am going to loosen this up in the microwave, and I'm going to use a pastry brush to top my fruit. If you've ever bought a fruit tart or made one, you can buy glazes, you can make glazes, but this is an easy way to get exactly the right amount of sugar because you want your glaze to stay shiny, keep in the moisture, but you don't want it to be too wet. Too much moisture is a bad thing. That's why something that's already in jam or preserve form is the best thing. It's already got a really good amount of gel property. And apricot is a relatively neutral flavor. However, I will tell you, I did an exam once, and I'm very exacting, and I did a very delicate, even, beautiful glaze on my fruit tart. And the chef, judging one of the chefs, said, I want to thank you. He said, usually people put so much on that it's like thick and gross, and you can taste it and whatever. You really just need a thin, beautiful amount. I am going to bring out the cheesecake that is still in the container so you can see what it looks like. I have a lot of stuff in here right now. So this is my little carrier. It's actually not a cake carrier, but it really works well when you're traveling or bringing something to work to have a flat bottom. And sometimes, like this is narrow and the bottom is wider. So this is actually the bottom and that's the top, but watch. When I pull off the top part, the cake is like on a bottom. Now this actually has like a little bump in it that sticks up, which I don't like, so it is a little off kilter. But actually it gives me a nice place to pull from the bottom. Now there's moisture there. That's what cheesecakes do. There's moisture in there. It's hard sometimes. It's like a home that I'm working out of. All right, I'm going to put this onto the paper towel. So the cheesecake has a lot of moisture in it, and no matter, you know, how perfect you are, that's why using a biscuit on the bottom or a cookie crust can absorb some moisture. You're always going to get a little moisture expressed, and I made this last Wednesday. So of course some of the water is going to come out. I took this, let me show you how I do it. When you are using, this was baked in here. This cream cheesecake was baked in here. In order to get it out, because this is like that, all you do is use something strong and flat. And you would take a butter knife and go around the edge, and then that cake comes out like that. And you'll see in my video, that's how I got it off of here. And then I put it onto a cake board. So this is on a cake board. Now I could use a cake board that was wider, but I knew I wanted a narrower one, okay? I'm gonna put this onto a cake stand. You grab a cake stand. One of the tricks that I have is that everything I buy is either white, glass, cream, wood, marble, silver, copper. I don't buy tons of color. I find that I move a lot. I have lots of different kitchens, and it just simplifies my life. So I have a few glass cake stands, and so that might seem boring to some people, but it gives me continuity. It saves me money. This is a hand-blown, expensive Simon Pierce cake stand, but I have inexpensive glass cake stands, and you kind of can't tell the difference when they're all together. That's why when you'll look in my cabinets, everything's white glass or whatever. So this is a cheesecake we made. And also in my video, you will see that if you heat up an offset spatula, when you pull this out, if it's gotten bumped, you can take a warmed offset, smooth it out just like you do frosting, and then wipe it off, and you're good. So this, I think this looks really, really great. So we'll put this on here, get it in the center. There's a couple things we can do. I will cut it. I have a knife, I have my apricot, I have plates. What else do I have here? And let me tell you one other thing that Rose Levy-Berenbaum does. These are Ladyfingers. And if you take these Ladyfingers and you just cut off the bottom so it's flat, you can take these, and I can use scissors and show you really quick. Now this is introducing flour, which obviously is not good if you are presenting the cheesecake as being flourless and all that kind of thing. But if I were to take scissors and these Ladyfingers and just cut off the ends so they're straight, I could use a knife as well. And you take this pan, this is the inside, and you layer them in like this. And you would go all the way around doing the same thing. And then you would put them on the bottom with the cut side up. The batter, so look at how this would look. The batter would be lower than the cake. And I could do this. There's nothing wrong with taking Ladyfingers, and theoretically, like with an opera cake or something, you could soak these, but I could go around with these, and they're taller than, and you know what, I'm just going to do it because it's, I mean, it's so fun. So I'm just going to cut the end off, and this is just so that it has a bottom. And I'm going to match it up, and I'm going to go around. So you can see how the cake is shorter than the, and you could call this a biscuit. Ladyfingers are a sponge, and we did sponge cake last week. So I think we are all on the same page. So Ladyfingers are definitely not gluten-free, but they're sweet, and they're pretty, and they make like a crown, basically. And I think it's pretty because then if we add berries to the top, which we're going to, then it kind of creates a little frame. And sometimes people will take ribbon and tie the ribbon around to keep the Ladyfingers in place. And you just want to make sure that you don't use a pin that's going to hurt someone or anything that's not food safe or it's not been handled in a way that has not been cross-contaminated. All right. Have we come up with any other ideas for what our other recipes should be for the week? All right, I'm just going to put one here. Oop. So yeah, if this isn't sticking, I can always dab it with a little bit of, oh, and you know what? I meant to put gloves on. That's my bad. That is my bad. You can get as fussy as you want. You can make the Ladyfingers or you can buy them. I just bought them because I wanted to demo it, but I didn't want to get too crazy. Let me get my gloves on. We are going to be bringing this to work tomorrow. My hands are clean, but I like to wear gloves just as a good example and to let you all know that I think it's important and kind of signal food sanitation. So if I wanted, instead of sticking them on, I could put them in here and on the bottom and then pour the batter in and bake it. Because this sticks up a little higher than the cake, toward the last 10 minutes of baking, I might want to put a tent of aluminum foil to keep it from getting too dark. So that's so you know. All right, so let me get gloves on. Okay, so now that I have gloves on, I can push this on just a little harder so that it sticks, and it's gonna stick more as the cake becomes a little warmer. Isn't that pretty? I just think it's amazing. It's already pretty. I didn't soak the Ladyfingers, but you could soak it in espresso, all kinds of things. So there are a couple things we can do. I have strawberries, and these could be placed on here whole, and then I could put a little apricot glaze. I could cut them and put them around decoratively with the glaze, or I could take the raspberry puree. I'm gonna grab some raspberries. I could also take a lot of the puree and pour it on and completely cover it and just call it a day. But it's so pretty and it's so easy to do. So for the raspberries, I think I'm just gonna go around the edge just for fun. Macaroons are a great decor for these, and you don't even need it filled. You just do the shells around it. A lot of people do that. That's a great idea. All right, so I'm gonna put these around the edge. I'm gonna put them down because I can work faster with two hands. I tend to work near me versus far away. And I'm just gonna put these all around the edge, and I'm gonna pick the nicest looking ones. And right now, things are very expensive, and we went to a couple different stores and the raspberries were not good, so it's a little bit of a problem. Who knows what's going on, right? But you want to pick your raspberries for flavor always, and if you live somewhere where you have beautiful fruit, you're lucky. Use what you have. But we do not have any fruit, not even rhubarb yet, so So if I want to leave this out, I could pull this from the fridge, give it an hour and serve it, and these raspberries are not going to get dried out because they're raspberries. But strawberries are different. And if you have a lot of fruit, you could put kiwi. You could make this just like a fruit tart, exactly like a fruit tart. Raspberries do mold. They're terrible. My trick when I get home from buying raspberries, they've been stored like this. And I used to buy a lot when I was doing wedding cakes. The second I get home, you turn it upside down. That's because they've been sitting the other way for a very long time. This allows some of the moisture to get distributed and evaporate. That's what the holes are for. So I always flip them over, always. And then if they sit there more than a day, I flip them after a day. And that helps keep the moisture moving because raspberries are very, very, very sensitive to moisture. This is a better container. And then you can get a whole container, $4.99, and they're all bad. And you're like, oh my gosh. So you could spend the money. You want to spend the money? I could fill this whole thing up with raspberries and it'd be absolutely gorgeous, right? Gorge. And I have the raspberries. So in theory, I could keep going. But I kind of like how it looks. So I'm just going to leave that for now. And even leaving your berries out of the refrigerator for several minutes, it just deteriorates them. They are very, very, very sensitive. This one's super smushy and leaky. Not good quality. Pull this out. This is my Basque cheesecake. This is a preview. Let me do a couple. I'm going to warm up my apricot for 5 seconds, just a couple seconds. The brush that I have is a thin, natural bristled. This is it says fat on it, but I'm going to use it. So it's narrow. So I'm going to want that for the strawberries because they're little. I'm going to show you what I do. Give it 11 seconds, and I'm going to cut the strawberries. I'm just going to slice them. I was thinking it'd be pretty if I took this and did a spiral, but I'm going to do a few strawberries first. We're going to take it one step at a time. I've never done a Basque cheesecake, and I'm truly obsessed. I love it. All right, so I have a lot of little short spatulas, and look at how the pectin in here is making this very thick. That's great because I need it to gel up like that on my fruit, but I need it a little thinner, and this short spatula fits in the microwave. So I'm going to cut the bottom off the strawberries. I don't normally do this, and these are not the best looking strawberries in my opinion. If I lived in strawberry country or it was strawberry season, I would try to find really small, pretty strawberries that are all the same size, and then I would just put them bottom up all the way around. This still is a little thick, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it 5 more seconds. I would like these all to be exactly the same height, but I don't think we're gonna get that. And these strawberries are not, you know, I'm not a big fan of serving things out of season. So I really don't think strawberries taste good when they're not in season. That's just my opinion. If I had a restaurant or someplace, I wouldn't. I'm not saying everything has to be locally grown, but I just don't think these are great unless you're going to cook them or do something else. I really like frozen strawberries that have been picked at their peak. I think that's great. Okay, so this is a lot thinner. Feels pretty warm, so okay. Strawberries. So if I take these, I don't think that looks pretty. I'm going to slice them and put them around like that. So I'm going to do some slices and lay them flat. Now, if I were serving this for real or having people over, I would have planned exactly what the top of this is going to look like. I would have looked for inspo, or I would have drawn something out. I wouldn't leave it to chance like I'm doing right now. So I think the same with answering some questions, depending on what your desired outcome is what you should be doing. Yeah, I just put the apricot glaze in the microwave, but you can put it in a pan. I just didn't want to pull out my induction and all that. You know, when I get strawberries in season, and when we used to go strawberry picking in Wisconsin at Barthel's, they were all like little and beautiful, and that would be just even prettier than the raspberries are. So very beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to take my strawberry, and I'm just going to, I got to orient. Ooh. This is not going to be perfect, but we're just going to have fun with it. So I'm going to go around with the berry and kind of make them upright. And normally I wouldn't use the edges, and I have all kinds of rules, but we're just going to do this. People always like to say rustic, but sometimes people use rustic a little too much for messy. So you want the top to be up. And I did one exam. You know, I don't like contests, but I like being tested. And I did a fruit tart, and I did kiwi, strawberries. What else did I do? It was beautiful. And I did a pastry cream and a nice pâte sucrée, delicate. I think I might still be able to put a little bit of the raspberry puree, but then I'm going to cut it and show you what it looks like cut. So if you plan, you can get this all dialed in decoratively, but honestly, I mean, this is beautiful. This would serve very nicely at anything from a barbecue to a breakfast brunch, anything. Nobody would turn this down. Or I could serve a plain cheesecake and I could add strawberries on the plate. Like, you could do whatever you have time for. A little bit more. I'm waiting to show you the passion cream because I'm really excited about it. It is expressing a good amount of water, but I think it'll be okay. All right, let's see. There we go. Okay. Pretty, pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to take the apricot jam and get rid of a few things. Okay. Get rid of the spatula. So, yep, I just want to use a little bit. Doesn't really, it's warm enough to roll off, but I want to keep it very thin. Am I close enough? And you don't want it drippy. So you have to take just a moment of time, pay attention, but imagine that if you don't cover it, it's going to dry out. So you're going to walk away and come back in 30 minutes and your beautiful strawberries are going to be looking wilted and dried out and sad. Plus they'll start to leach water onto the cheesecake. All right, so this is what I would do. I would slowly go around and I would do the raspberries as well. And you could make this a little thinner, too thin. You're going to start to get dripping, but I'm not going to go crazy showing you how I do this. But you want every bit covered so it's shiny. Okay. And I could make my apricot puree or the glaze thinner. This is just how I cooked it, thick. Okay, so you would do everything so it's shiny, but you don't want anything drippy or too thick or obvious, and it's going to chill up, set up basically very quickly. So you want to move quickly. And this can go back in the fridge. It's going to dry out in the fridge too. It's not just for room temp. It's for looks, but it does not have to be, you shouldn't see, puddles of it. All right. I think this looks really, I want to do a little bit of the raspberry. Although they're so delicate, they kind of stick to the pastry brush. But let me go through with my gloved hand. So you could put a ribbon around this if you wanted to, or I could have dipped the Ladyfingers in white chocolate, sprinkles. I could have put them into flavoring with a little anything. Lots and lots of options. Okay, so that is done. Should I cut a slice? I think I should. Move this over here. Okay, without spilling this. Can you see? Oops, this raspberry and these Ladyfingers are trying to get away. All right. So the last thing I could do, if I wanted the raspberry puree, and you could do little drops around. Now, if you do this too far in advance, it's going to start to stain and bleed onto the cheesecake. So if you wanted to do something like this, do it at the very last minute. It's already starting to leak. So this is something you do right before serving. Just little dots. I don't think this looks that great. I was just doing it to show you how I would use a squeeze bottle. Okay. And then if I want to take a plate, this is an old dessert plate from a restaurant I used to own. I could squeeze a little spiral and then place the cake onto there. So you can do a lot of things with the squeeze bottle. This is a clean towel. I haven't used for anything else. And because there's no crumbs, I'm not going to be cutting this like I do with a serrated knife. This is a cheesecake. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to use a hot, dry knife and I'm going to clean it in between. Can you guys see this? Yes, I will put the glaze needs to be stored in the refrigerator at all times. I brought it out about an hour before I started just to loosen it up a little bit. So you want your water to be really, really hot. You can use hot water in a pan or a container if you want to dip your knife. If you want to get the knife warm and then you want to dry it completely off. And there's no crust on this. So I don't have to cut through a crust. It gave me a really clean cut. Now that's going to chill down my knife, so I have to make sure that I give it a second. That's the time part. Time, temperature, and moisture. And depending on what you're serving your cheesecake with is how you determine what size to do. Because if you give a huge size and you're serving ice cream and a lot of other desserts, you don't need a huge size. But if all you're serving to your guests is a piece of this cheesecake at the table with a cup of coffee, you can go ahead and make it a little bigger. Here we go. This is the moment of truth. Nope. I did not do a good cut. I'm going to put this on a different plate because I don't want to, I want a good piece. It'll taste good, I just want it to look pretty. I think I need to move faster. All right, let me do one more. Because this is what it looks like inside. Got it a little mushy. So I want to get one good clean cut and I want to move more quickly. Sometimes that first piece is like a pancake. The first one is not as good as the other ones are going to be. But I'm going to go ahead and move it quickly. There we go. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Okay, let me show you. Now you can see how I put the cheesecake in a deli cup. This is how Dave and I eat our snacks out of deli cups. All right, let's see. That is the texture. This is what it looks like from that side. Now I know it's kind of hard to tell. This is with the lady fingers and then without. But let me get a fork, show you the texture. I like this side. So cutting into it, it's all about how does the fork go through. Did you see that? I think this would, I mean, it's so delicate. So delicate. I do love cheesecake, and I do like it when it's a cheesecake texture, but this is not that. This is, it's got give, and it has the cheesecake taste and all that, and it's not whipped. You remember we didn't whip a bunch of air into it. It's a custard, so it's just light as air. And with the lemon in there, remember we put lemon in, it's just absolutely delicious. All right. This is the Rose Levy Berenbaum cheesecake. Made like a custard, no flour, nothing. Okay, the Basque Cheesecake has a tiny bit of flour. I know. And usually when I'm looking at stuff, this is how I eat it. The top is shiny. You know, I really do kind of dissect it and pull it apart and taste the different portions. I don't even know what to say. It's so good, it's to die for. So we'll put this back here. I have another one that's gonna be even better. So that's what it looks like up close. Okay, I made this plain cheesecake look gorgeous. Now when I put this back in the refrigerator, I want to make sure it's covered, so it's going to go back on the lid and with this on top of it, okay? You want to keep smells out of it, so if you have a stinky fridge, that's a no-go, and it needs to stay refrigerated. Now I can leave it out while we're all having a meal and that kind of thing. If you don't have containers, you can just cover it with plastic wrap, and it doesn't even matter if it gets dinged up a bit, you just want it to taste good. So the biggest problem with the home kitchen is airflow and other smells. This is the Rose Levy Berenbaum. It's dense, light, and creamy. and it's ethereal in your mouth. It's different than the Basque cheesecake. All right, I'm gonna go put this over. I'm just gonna put it over here. We'll leave it in the background. Take a class photo when we're done. Okay, next, this I'm excited about. This is the cheesecake with the crumb crust. The crumb crust, it's got the ginger cookies, and then it has the lemon cream topping, which I have plastic to touch on. I made a huge batch of lemon cream, and I ended up jarring it up. This is not officially something that can last any longer than ready to eat, but I'm gonna give this to neighbors, and they can keep it in their fridge for up to 7 days. And I use my formulator to take the amount of passion fruit cream puree I had left over, and then I made the whole recipe to that amount because I want to use it up because it doesn't last long. All right, so that's done. All right, so I'm going to clean up this moisture that's happened. It's expressing this combination. It's very sticky. This is a very syrupy, sticky mess. This is the water coming out of the cheesecake and interacting with my little crust that I made. You know, I'm not sure right now, without further analysis, it's most likely there's too much sugar in my crumb crust, and I had never made it before, so I just guessed, and this is what happened. So I would adjust this. So I would clean this up right before I served it, which is what I'm doing. And the reason I have the plastic on top of the passion fruit cream is because it will develop a crust. I don't want an ugly, yucky crust. I want the top to be very tender. All right, so I am cleaning up the cake stand so it's not sticky and it looks good. And what I have on this cheesecake, before I poured the cream on top, I wrapped it in acetate. Let me get one more paper towel and I should have a nice clean stand. So this is the kind of thing that you want to do in the kitchen. If you do it too far in advance, it'll just keep expressing moisture. And again, the only reason I'm doing it is because I used a recipe I've never used before. So I need to be aware that the sugar in it is pulling water from the cheesecake. That's what's happening. It's bullying the cheesecake. Sticky, sticky. All right, getting there, getting there. All right, it doesn't need to be perfect because I guess no one's here. All right, it's not straight either. I would prefer that the cake was even on my tray. But if you do this way in advance, it's gonna keep expressing the moisture, so you wanna serve it as quickly as you can. Okay. So this is what it looks like up close. You have the ginger cookie crumb crust that I made by using a food processor. That's the Rose Levy Berenbaum cream cheese that I baked on top of that. And then, let me take this plastic off. That's the lemon cream. I'm sorry, the passion. That's the passion fruit cream. That looks good. And then this is acetate. And I wrapped it around the cake before I poured the passion fruit cream on there. So I'm going to pull it off like this. Oops. It likes to be really cold, so when you pull it off, you don't get all this on here, but that's okay. All right, so there's my cake. And so for this, I was planning on, I thought, well, it's really pretty the way that it is. I did a little of my flavor work, and I'm just gonna plate it, and then if I were serving this, I would throw, berries on it, or I would finish it on the plate, because this is a lot. Now the top doesn't look perfect because the plastic left marks. So what I could do is pipe whipped cream on here. I could add fresh fruit to it. So maybe I'll add some berries. Let me grab my raspberries. All right, let me grab some raspberries and we'll make it look. I like to go from, we'll just do, so I could cover the whole thing in raspberries and that would be pretty. And you would just want to work quick because everything is going to start to interact and maybe weep because it's, when it gets warm, it's going to lose its structure. I'll put raspberries and I could fill the whole thing. The cheesecakes are going to go to work with Dave tomorrow, and I have extra passion cream to give people. And again, just because it's in a jar doesn't mean that I am expecting it. It's not canned, it's not safe, but it is safe for the same amount of time any ready-to-eat food is, which is 7 days. Right? So this is good because these raspberries are not going to last longer than today. Yeah, some of these are terrible. Oh gosh. And it just makes me cringe because it's such a waste of money. And so if you are at the grocery store and you're one of those people going through and looking at and investigating your raspberries and examining if they're good, do it because, you know, you're going to get home and find out that they're all bad. And it's they're so expensive. And honestly, they're not always that great. Sometimes they're hard or they're flavorless. But I think on a holiday, for a special occasion, the raspberries are that extra splurge that I think is really beautiful. Oops, see, that one's juicy. All right, I think I'm getting to the end of this. So if you get anything, I don't know if you know this, you get any condensation or liquid on something like this, you just take a paper towel and let it soak it up. You don't dab it, you just let it soak up the moisture. There we go. So I do that if I have condensation that's built up on something. All right, so pretty much this whole thing, the raspberries are yucky. We're gonna eat them, but they are not pretty enough to go onto my cheesecake. So I'm running low on raspberries. And what I wanna do from the top is make this look relatively round. So you could do any kind of fruit. All right. Give the impression of a circle, or choose the opposite and have it be completely offset. So I'm about out of firm raspberries. That's about it. Could do a birthday cheesecake with candles. Okay, there we go. That is it. The rest are mushy. Isn't that sad? See how the edge is rough? If I wanted to, I could take this. This is my clean towel. Run this under hot water and then clean it up, and I'll show you. But again, I'm taking longer than you should. You want to get this right to wherever you're going to serve it. Dry this off. And then, like, watch this. Let's see. And smooth it out. Just like you would if you were icing a cake. See that? Made it a little smoother. Let's plate this one up. Passion cream, raspberry, ginger, cookie crumble crust, and I would do a little coconut crumble of some sort or something crunchy. So this is a plate that matches my little hobnail. I only have one. That's gonna go there, and then I'm gonna get the heat going. There we go. All right. So this is gonna be soft. One more time. So a lot of what I do is out of a home kitchen, and it's in front of you guys. And if I were doing things the way I should, everything I'm doing, you wouldn't see me. I would be off doing a bunch of things, and it would be a completely different visual experience. So I'm trying to balance all of the needs. All right, let's see. I may not have cut it all the way. Ooh. Oh, I know what else is in there. The parchment's on the bottom. There we go. Yep, there is parchment on there, which isn't a problem, but I need to cut it off separately. All right, so this is the sort of broken up piece. Let me get one nice piece on this other. There we go. Get it nice and hot. I'm going to cut through the cookie crust and pull it away from the parchment this time. Much better. All right, that looks great. So if I were to work, and let me explain why it's challenging to wear gloves and be a good demonstrator. When you are working professionally, you are doing one thing repeatedly. So you want to wear gloves at the beginning of your work, and you want to stick with one thing and then you take them off. If I were to switch gloves as many times as is appropriate, someone would complain that I'm wasting gloves. So I just want you to know that there is a right way to wear gloves, and I am behind that 100%. But unfortunately, I can't demo every single thing in this format. There's no way. All right, so this is what this looks like. And the great thing is we have a lot of flavor here. We have the passion cream, which is one bite. And then we have the crust, which is a different flavor. And then the ultimate bite, that is really good, is to take the crust, a little of the passion cream, and a raspberry. Like that. And then that is a nice combination. So you can add other things to this. Oh, it's very soft. You can add other things to this, but that's the bottom of the crust. I added a little bit of extra ginger because the cookie, even though it said extra gingery flavor, was not very gingery. Let me clean this up and show you the cake, and then we're going to do the Basque cheesecake. Yeah, there is parchment in here. Sometimes I call that parchment. Parchment pizza or parchment cake. Okay, there we go. All right, let me show it to you. Very creamy. This is starting to weep a little bit, so it is something you need to move with. Otherwise, you can serve the plain cheesecake, and then you can dollop the passion cream onto the plate. So I served it a little messy, but I think with a little practice, I do a better job. I'd also work quicker. If this were a professional setting, I'd pull everything out. I would work focused. I'd be set up with my tools in advance because I am thinking about what the cake needs, not about what I need. And I certainly wouldn't be talking to other people. And that's one of the challenges I face with this, is I have spent an entire career learning to be focused and to ignore everything going on around me. So it's really hard to pay attention to the needs of all of you and do a good job. So I am struggling with that balance. Thank you. So I made my own crust with butter, sugar, and some cookies I bought that said they were ginger. But actually, let me show you. When I was at the Milkweed Inn, we made graham crackers for the fire. And this is a recipe that I'm going to make graham crackers out of. And then you can take your homemade graham crackers and turn them into a graham cracker crust. So that's a fun way to do it as well. All right, so the very last cake of the day is our Basque cheesecake. And I'm very excited about it. It is cold. If I had my preference, I would eat it right out of the oven. And I did take a video of it coming out of the oven. And both of these cakes come out jiggly. I also added into my video collection how to wrap the cake so that the condensation does not end up back on your cheesecake. Okay? So the ginger cookies were to help pair the flavors with the passion cream. So this is the Basque cheesecake I wrapped it up. And when it comes out of the oven, you bake this at 425 and the Rose Levy Berenbaum you bake at 350 in a water bath. This one is baked at 425 with no water bath. And when it first comes out of the oven, it's like a souffle. It's very fluffed up, jiggly in the middle, and I did temp it. It should be 155 Fahrenheit. But at this point, it's been refrigerated. And before it was refrigerated, it had a really custardy look. But once it was refrigerated, it looks more like a cheesecake. So you can see that texture is much more firm. So I would argue that this cake changes dramatically upon cooling. So like I said, if I had my preference, I would eat it out of the oven. It was fabulous. I love the texture. But I would eat it this way too. This is just going to feel and taste on the inside more like a New York cheesecake that's got mascarpone or something. Maybe that's, see, I don't want to set off a debate about cheesecake. There's no crust. It was not baked in a water bath, but the flavor that comes from this darkening, the Maillard reaction that happens, and it almost burns. My parchment got really dark. That's where the flavor is. So I don't know if you're supposed to add anything to this, but I'm going to put it on a plate. We'll give it a little raspberry. And I think that's about it. I moved it when it was warm so that I could get the pan, and it did crack right there. So typically this would have come out and just been beautiful, but you cook this one with parchment and the other one all the way up, and it's all the way over the side, and that also helps to create the beautiful edge is the irregularity of the parchment. All right, so I think I'm done with the knife. I'm gonna eat this one. So I have passion cream I could use, or I could just put the raspberry. I could add a strawberry to the plate, or nothing. This plate's gonna make it a challenge. So that is the texture of the side. That is a thick crust. I think that is pretty thick. And then here is the side. You can see the crackliness, and it's relatively thick, and it tastes amazing. So let me get a fork, and that is our last sample. So it's a little firmer and a little drier than the other one. You see how it cracks off? Let me taste it. This doesn't have lemon, has a little bit of all-purpose flour. It's delicious. It's got a little bit different flavor, and I think that the crust is what makes it special. So I'm really glad that there's this alternative. And honestly, I don't think I've seen it often. So I think if you're looking for something unusual, a Basque cheesecake, and I love the one from America's Test Kitchen. It's very plain, very basic. So that's it. These are the cheesecakes. So there's side parts, there's the cake. I mean, I don't know which one I'd choose. This will be my last bite. Much lighter, creamier. With this crust, great flavor. They're both good. I don't know what I would say if you had to pick. Let me get a cake stand. So I like these, again, to reiterate, because you can make them in advance. They store in the refrigerator for 7 days, which I think is a long time. All right. But they do take up room in the fridge, so if you're planning friends and a party, one thing I like about a cake stand, believe it or not, in the refrigerator, is that once you've put things on a stand, if you're storing other things, they can go underneath. So you can get a little storage because it's been raised, but cake stands take up a ridiculous amount of space. So that's it. What do you guys think? What am I going to do with all this? Now we're going to wrap it up and send it to work with Dave with a bunch of passion cream, and I think people will really enjoy it. Okay, so I'm gonna put these in the fridge just to keep them safe, and then I'm gonna sit down and talk to you all. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of stacking. That's how I'm fitting it in here. And I'll transfer these to something just to take them. Okay. All right, that's it. Woo, that's a lot. I like a runny Basque cheesecake. Do I take it out of the oven earlier? You still want it to be 155, but I'll be honest, mine was a little warmer. It was at 158 when I took it out, and that was for reasons which were what's going on in my kitchen. And it was, when in its warm state, runny enough. I wouldn't have been able to, it was great. But once it cools, it does get kind of firm. So you want to use a thermometer, and there's a big swing. There's a big effect that happens between 154 and 158, 157, 156. So you want to dial it in and pull it out like right at 154, right as it's coming up to 155. I wouldn't go under, but I would do it right up to the line, right up to the edge. And if you want to eat it cold, bring it to 154. It's not going to kill anybody, 153. But I wouldn't underdo it by eyesight. I would use a thermometer. And I don't say that very often, but with this, I definitely would. It's supposed to cook to 155. So I'm saying like even 153, 154 is going to be enough. I mean, that time span might even be 10 minutes worth of cooking. Okay? That would be it really would be significant instead of 155. Remember, mine came out at 157, 158. If I'd taken it out at 153 or 154, it would have been a lot softer. So you don't need giant swings, but you just think in terms of, you can't see it with your eyes. You probably would need to use an instant read thermometer or whatever. Okay, good. Awesome. Let me know how that works. You can always get in touch. So we are the PoP Baking Club. The PoPers have been here. So then I'll be back Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll come back on Sunday. And if you have questions, if people make it and whatever, we'll talk more about it on Sunday. Thank you. We'll see everybody on Wednesday. We're going to do pie crust. I think that is a very smart, practical, and intelligent decision. All right. Happy baking, everyone. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock for the PoP Baking Club. Take care.